Hey, what's up you guys? I'm Sara Lubratt, and today we are going to be talking about something that I have been obsessing over recently and kind of start potentially a new series on this channel where I deep dive into various spontaneous interests that I have, and more likely than not, they will all be within the literary realm. Today's topic is the Future Library of Norway. I first heard about this project when I was watching Margaret Atwood's masterclass, and we will get to why she mentions it in that masterclass later on in this video. But if you go on to enjoy this new video format and want to see more like this on this channel, make sure you like and subscribe. And now without further ado, let's talk about the Future Library of Norway. The Future Library of Norway is a project started by Scottish artist Katie Paterson, set to basically honoring future readers 100 years from now, or 100 years from 2014 when the project was started. The website says 1,000 trees have been planted in Nordmarka, a forest just outside Oslo, which will supply paper for a special anthology of books to be printed in 100 years' time. Between now and then, one writer every year will contribute a text with the writings held in trust, unpublished until the year 2114. Tending the forest and ensuring the preservation for the 100-year duration of the artwork finds a conceptual counterpart in the invitation extended to each writer to conceive and produce a work in the hope of finding a receptive reader in an unknown future. This is the primary reason that I'm obsessed with this project, is that over the span of 100 years, 100 different writers are going to be asked to contribute a text or a manuscript that will be unread by humanity until the year 2114. Which means that in my lifetime, I will not see this library finished, which I think is really cool, but I'm also kind of jealous because later generations born, in the next 50 or so years might then still be alive when this anthology of works goes on to then be published. Also absolutely in love with the fact that this project depends on future readers and is so hopeful towards future readers that it makes me feel very confident as a writer that readers and an audience that wants to consume stories is not going anywhere. I did think it was a little odd when I heard that there were only 1,000 words planted for this, but then I had to go and look it up, and what I found on a random website was that a typical tree produces 10,000 to 20,000 sheets of paper, which is then going to be 10 million sheets of paper, so maybe that'll be fine. But there's this forest in Nordmarka in Norway that was planted specifically to be harvested in the year 2114 to then be used as the paper to publish this anthology of works. This forest is also where the ceremonies are held, where the authors then hand over their manuscripts. But again, we'll get to that in a second.
Future Library is an artwork that's going to unfold over 100 years. Today we're in the forest because we're cutting down the trees to clear a space to grow Future Library. In a month or so we'll be planting right here in the forest about 1,000 trees, and when the trees are fully grown we're going to cut them down and print a book which is written now but never read until 100 years. We're inviting one writer a year over the 100 years to write a piece which could be anything, fiction, non-fiction, poetry, from one word to any length of words, and that will be held in a special place inside the new library in Oslo, and then in 100 years time it will be made public and printed, so nobody will read any of these texts until far in the future. Not the next generation, maybe the next generation after that. It's amazing that we're even here today planting the forest, because this is the big kind of milestone really that we've actually put the roots in the ground and the trees are beginning to grow. So this is quite a momentous moment really for the project. This project has been so much about ideas and about the imagination, and it's really nice to be physically working with these roots in the plants and putting them in the ground and knowing that their growth is going to contain, effectively all the ideas of the writers growing through the roots over the years.
This project is full of so much symbolism and I am obsessed.
We are making decisions today that are extremely important for 2 generations to come. Not for us only, but the next generation.
When we start meeting the authors, and the authors are going to be invited to come here to the forest, I'm going to be building and designing a small room inside the Oslo New Library where the manuscripts will be held over the 100 years, and we're going to build the room using the trees that we've cut down in the forest. Anybody can go up and visit the room with Future Library text in it. Nobody will be able to read the text, but they'll be there.
Future Library is a living, breathing, organic artwork unfolding over 100 years. It will live and breathe through the material growth of the trees. I imagine the tree rings as chapters in a book, the unwritten words year by year activated, materialized. The visitor's experience of being in the forest, changing over decades, being aware of the slow growth of the trees containing the writer's ideas like an unseen energy. The manuscripts are being held in trust in a specially designed room in the new public library, Deichmann Vivorka? My pronunciation is probably not correct on that. Intended to be a space of contemplation, this room is lined with wood from the forest that was cut down to plant the new trees. The authors' names will be on display, but none of the manuscripts will be available for reading until their publication in 1 century's time. There's a quote from Katie Paterson, the artist, on the website that says, "Future Library has nature, the environment at its core, and it involves ecology, the interconnectedness of things, those living now and still to come. It questions the present tendency to think in short bursts of time, making decisions only for us living now. Time scale is 100 years, not vast in cosmic terms. However, in many ways, the human time scale of 100 years is more confronting. It is beyond many of our current lifespans, but close enough to come face to face with it, to comprehend and relativize." The room in which all of these texts are held in the library is called the Silent Room, and it is stunning looking. Like, it looks so otherworldly. The website also says this about the Silent Room. The Silent Room opened June 12th of 2022. It is situated on the top floor of the library, along with a special collection of books and archives. It faces in the direction of the Future Library forest. That's cool. It is a small, intimate room, encouraging only a few visitors at a time. It is beautifully crafted. The trees have been cut into approximately 16,000 pieces. 100 drawers will be filled with the author's manuscripts year upon year. Handmade cast glass drawers are etched with the author's name and the year of their text. Their manuscripts are just visible, hinted at through glowing lights. Built in 100 layers of wood like unfolding tree rings, the drawers are scattered throughout the space, one per ring. Preservation, security, and longevity have been carefully considered throughout the design process, which includes a development of specialist handmade keys and a lighting system to last a century. We invite you to take off your shoes, enter the space, and show respect. So on my bucket list now is to visit both the Silent Room and the forest itself. A dream of mine is to visit the forest during a handover ceremony, which is where the author gives their manuscript to this project. The handover ceremonies are a special ceremony in the forest each spring that marks the handover of the author's manuscript. This event is free and open to all, and if you can't make it in person, they are also available to watch online. The handover event is at the heart of the Future Library. It is a ritual which has two important sites for all authors over the next 100 years: the forest and the library. The day involves a public walk into the forest where the author gives a reading, then a question and answer event in the new public library. The storytelling event in the forest and the In Conversation event in the library will continue for generations. The website design for this Future Library of Norway too is just absolutely stunning. It's like so simplistic, but like so gorgeous if it loads. A forest in Norway is growing. It's just so pretty. So this is why I mentioned Margaret Atwood's masterclass, is because in her masterclass, she said that she had just given her manuscript to the Future Library of Norway, which is how I first heard about it.
What separates fiction writers from other kinds of storytellers? What separates written down stories from, for instance, an opera, a ballet, a play, a painting? Well, for one thing, with a written down story, there's always a gap in time between the person writing the story and the person receiving the story. If you're writing a book, the time in which you're writing it and the space in which you're writing it are always different from the time and space in which the reader is reading it. Or as Emily Dickinson put it, this is my letter to the world. It's a letter. You write it, you mail it. Maybe somebody gets it at the other end. So I recently did a project called the Future Library of Norway. So I was the first writer for this, and you get an invitation like that and you either say, you're crazy, or you say, I'm in. And people then say, well, why would you write a book that nobody can read for 100 years? For me, it's the great unknown, but it's a very hopeful gesture. It means somewhere in the future, there will still be readers. There will still be people. There will still be a forest in Norway. There will still be a library. And every act of writing assumes a future reader.
And I probably watched her masterclass like a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and since then I've been obsessed with this project. So she was the first author that gave a manuscript for this, and she talked a lot in her masterclass about how she was so excited to give something to a future generation. Also, let's talk about how gorgeous the background is, and it moves when the cursor moves, which is so cool. But then as it continues, it's just so cool, and eventually these will all have author names in them over the years, which is so sick. Until finally, in 2114, this project is done and finally published. The artist behind Future Library, Katie Paterson, born in 1981 in Scotland, is widely regarded as one of the leading artists of her generation. Collaborating with scientists and researchers across the world, Paterson's projects consider our place on Earth in context of geological time and change. Her artworks make use of sophisticated technologies and specialist expertise to stage intimate, poetic, and philosophical engagements between people and their natural environment. So this project fits right in. Combining a romantic sensibility with a research-based approach, conceptual rigor, and coolly minimalistic presentation, which the website totally shows, her work collapses the distance between the viewer and the most distant edges of time and the cosmos. Katie Paterson has broadcast the sounds of a melting glacier live, mapped all the dead stars, compiled a slide archive of darkness from the depths of the universe, created a light bulb to stimulate the experience of moonlight, and sent a recast meteorite back into space, eliciting feelings of humility, wonder, and melancholy akin to the experience of the romantic sublime. Paterson's work is at once understated in gesture and yet monumental in scope. No kidding, talking about 100 years. The paramount objective of the Future Library Trust is to select and invite the authors and to compassionately sustain the artwork for its 100-year duration. Their authors are being selected for their outstanding contributions to literature and poetry and for their work's ability to capture the imagination of this and future generations. Key words in the selection process are imagination and time. The Trust is inviting 100 outstanding writers of any nationality or age to contribute works in any genre or language. The length of this piece is entirely for the author to decide. Sjon, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, was the contributing author in 2016 and decided to write his text in Icelandic, and has since expressed concern about the vulnerability of the Icelandic language, which is currently spoken by only 370,000 people, which, as Sjon is concerned, might mean that it might not survive or find translators in 2114. It is now sort of a dream, although I understand that this is not really anything that I have control over. This is now a dream of mine, is to be asked to be one of the authors included in the Future Library project. I don't know what that takes, and I'm sure that I can only do my best in putting out good work when I start to publish and just continuing to focus on imagination and expansion of the human mind and my own creativity, and then just kind of seeing where that gets me. But how freaking sick would it be to be one of the authors included in this 100-year project, where they're only taking 100 authors, one every year. One author every year. There are so many authors in the world. There are so many writers and poets and screenwriters and whatever in the world. But to be considered as one of these people would be so cool. So it's kind of a new dream of mine. The 100-year agreement. On Wednesday, 8th of June 2022, the Future Library Trust and the City of Oslo signed a 100-year contract. The agreement promises that the Future Library Forest will remain in the hands of the Trust for the next 100 years, protected trees on which the anthologies will be printed in 2114. The Silent Room in Deichman Bevorkia? I keep messing it up. I still don't know how to pronounce that. Built from trees cleared from the forest, is also honored in the agreement as the resting place for the manuscripts until 2114. Chair of the Future Library Trust, Anne Beat Hovind, says that this contract is both a commitment and a symbol of the City of Oslo's devotion to art, the environment, community, and the written word. It is a commitment to and trust in future generations, which I think is the biggest part of this project. 100 years from now, I believe Oslo will continue to be a beacon of those ideals. Vice Mayor for Culture and Sport Omar Sami Gamal says, in an uncertain world with a worrying future, to me, Future Library is a symbol of our common hope and our shared commitment as humanity to fight for a world that lasts longer than our lifetime. If we make it, the gift is 100 unique texts given to the generations coming after us. Today, I am deeply moved by the trust that the City of Oslo and the Future Library Trust have put in each other by signing a pact that guarantees the longevity of Future Library, but also the shared commitment to defend this artwork in difficult days to come. So when looking at each author as a part of this project, you can click enter to see a little bit about them and this project. So for example, Margaret Atwood's manuscript title is Scribbler Moon. And it has this really beautiful quote from Margaret Atwood that says, "How strange is it to think of my own voice, silent by then for a long time, suddenly being awakened after 100 years. What is the first thing that voice will say as a yet not embodied hand draws it out of its container and opens it to the first page?" And then Katie Paterson, again, the Scottish artist that started all of this, has a quote on the same page. It says, "It is my dream that Margaret Atwood is writing for Future Library. I imagine her words growing through the trees in unseen energy, activated and materialized, the tree rings becoming chapters in a book." And Margaret Atwood's Handover is available to watch online.
Every year, for the next 99 years, we will meet here, in this forest, right here on this spot. We will do our walk, have our coffee and chocolate.
Even just that, I'm gonna start crying.
Sit down and listen to authors reading. A simple ritual at the heart of the Future Library. Most important part of this ritual is the handover of the manuscript from the author to the Future Library Trust to the municipality public library, the Deichman. Special warm welcome to you, Margaret. Welcome to the forest here in Oslo as the first author to hand over a new manuscript to us.
We are now going to announce the title. It's the only part that you will know for 100 years. The title is Scribbler Moon. That gives you a lot of room for speculation. You see, you wanted the idea of writing and the idea of time, and they're both in the title.
Here we all are. We're standing in a forest. It's just an ordinary forest, but it's also a forest full of promise. I'm about to hold a manuscript by Margaret Atwood, and it's going to be printed on these tiny trees, and nobody's going to read it for another 99 years. Be careful, it's the first. Thank you.
It is with the greatest humility that I receive this gift on behalf of the city of Oslo. It really makes me feel like I'm allowed to play a very small part in the making of true history. I do, of course, wish that I could live another 100 years. But most of us who are present today won't succeed, even if we try. However, we can watch the trees in this forest grow. We can be thankful that every year another voice will add to the library, words that no one will read for a long time. We can let this wonderful work of art remind us that we do not inherit this world from our parents, we merely look after it for our children. The art project carries an implicit belief in our future that we will still read books and use the public library in 100 years. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for coming.
I am fully tearing up. The whole gist of this project is believing in future generations, believing that we are looking after the planet for future generations, and that there will be readers in the future. And for the writers and the other people involved in the trust looking after these manuscripts, is that they are a part of something that will outlive them. And there's something about this idea that is just so powerful, and I'm obsessed with it. Because the Future Library of Norway is quite literally that, a library for the future. So sick. So freaking sick. I am just so obsessed with the idea of this project. Just so obsessed. I love it. So I had to share it with you guys today. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will leave a link to the website down below if you want to go check out what the Future Library of Norway is all about. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and feel free to comment anything down below that I should deep dive into in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Sara Lubratt. I'm currently trying to post videos twice a week, but at least once a week on Mondays and ideally Thursdays, but for sure Mondays. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.